As for the pedagogical design, ICBE combines two things: just-in-time teaching and peer-assisted learning. Now, this is done to create a responsive and collaborative classroom environment. Let me explain to you what I mean about just-in-time teaching. For me, it meant short, ungraded diagnostic quizzes that are provided at the start of each new topic. The idea was not to test, deep knowledge, but really just to take the temperature, just to see if there are any gaps, things that students didn't understand when they watched the videos or when they went through the material. So I didn't want them to have full dependency on the videos. I also wanted them to know that I'm available in class to discuss or to debate or to explain further any of the concepts that they didn't fully understand. So originally what I did was I would display questions on the board, and then I would go through them, and then of course by having this back and forth with the students, we're able to identify areas that need to be explained further. But then later on I started using smartphones and then using applications where you can actually take polls or you can have surveys. So it became very interesting, and it became very engaging for students. As for the peer-assisted learning, it encourages students to learn from and with one another. So students support their peers through guided discussions, shared problem solving within a group setting maybe, and they would have an ability to get to know each other. So there's lots of talking in the class, and that's okay, right? Because the idea is to get them to discuss these ideas with each other and to share their knowledge and to explain things to each other. Or maybe, to have a shared moment of not understanding something, and where I would step in and of course explain it to them, and then they would have this aha moment. So in this PAL system, I would have 3 different levels. So the basic, intermediary, and the advanced. The basic is really just putting students and pairing them together, putting the stronger students with academically challenged students so that they can actually interact with each other. The intermediary part was where I would actually have some students volunteer, to take some cases home, and I would give them a video, and I would also make myself available through email and whatever other means of communicating with them. They can ask me questions over the weekend about it, and then when we meet after the weekend, for example, they would actually take over the teaching in the classroom, and they would be the ones responsible for advancing the discussion with their peers. The advanced level is the one where really the magic happens. So I have experimented with this going back to 2018 when I first began with a cross-cultural simulation project. This is a project that I did in collaboration with Bond University in Australia with a colleague of mine. We both were teaching at the time advanced accounting. So we wanted to design a shared project where our students would come together around a fictitious or simulated merger between a Qatari company and an Australian company, and our students would actually work as consultants, accounting consultants to those two firms. So this is where they actually communicated with each other, debated ideas with each other, knowing that some of my students that I teach in Qatar only speak Arabic, so they were taught the material in Arabic. So we had to design things to where language was not a barrier. So we wanted to create a cross-cultural bilingual collaboration between those students to create a real simulation of a working place where you really had to have this interaction, because obviously with business, the way that it's becoming very international these days, you really have to be able to feel comfortable working with others and people that are from different cultures and different languages. We were able to publish a paper in accounting education titled Core Competencies for the Global Workplace, a cross-cultural and skill-based simulation project in accounting. This was published in 2021. In 2023, I had an opportunity to teach a graduate course, Corporate Governance, and 2 undergraduate courses, Intermediate Accounting 1 and Intermediate Accounting 2. And during that semester, I wanted to create an intra-program simulation project where the graduate students would serve as internal auditors to the students that are in the undergraduate program on one shared project. And this project was a scenario involving a reconstruction of financial statements after a natural disaster. So the idea was to emphasize teamwork, critical thinking, and really to bring ideas back and forth from the graduate level to the undergraduate level and back again. Recently, I started a vertical integration project. In 2025, I was teaching 3 different accounting courses that covered revenue recognition. A basic financial accounting course, an intermediate accounting 1 course, and an intermediate accounting 2 course. So 3 different levels. Of course, the higher you go, the more challenging the content becomes. So I wanted to create one project to where it would simulate how accountants operate in a real professional setting, so like a mini accounting department, by integrating students from those 3 different academic levels within the same program. They're all undergraduate students, but of course different courses. So the team, or the team structure, or the casting, let's call it, mirrors a real accounting department where you have a junior staff. This is the financial accounting, basic financial accounting student. A mid-level analyst, this is the intermediate accounting 1 student, and then a senior accountant, which is the intermediate accounting 2 student, which also served as the team leader. So the project was divided into 2 components. One was a take-home component, and the other one was an on-campus, on-site continuation to what they would have started at the take-home part. So the way that this worked was we had 2 main themes which were covered in intermediate accounting 1 and 2, but not in financial accounting, obviously, not in the basic level. Those were long-term contracts, revenue contracts, I mean, and then retail sales with right of return. Now, the interesting thing is that long-term contracts was once part of intermediate accounting 2, but it was removed in 2024 because of the crowded curriculum. Other items were brought in. So what I wanted to do was I didn't want my students to miss out on that component, so I had them, venture into this new idea, right? At the same time, they, of course, had covered retail sales in intermediate accounting 1. Now, the intermediate accounting 1 students are just now beginning to cover retail sales. So by having this project, you're having students that are moving ahead and students that are ahead that are actually going back and revisiting content that they have done in the past. The interesting thing is that the financial accounting, the basic course, the financial accounting students, of course, would have never had been exposed to any of this because financial accounting was just a college requirement. It didn't really go into these, in-depth ideas. So I didn't want to confuse them, yet at the same time, I wanted them to take the information from their senior team members and to incorporate it into some basic journal entries in one of the accounting softwares that we're using. So instead of them entering basic journal entries that they would have covered in financial accounting, they were actually covering and entering things that they would have, been exposed to in later semesters. Now, the interesting thing is that both the senior students, the intermediate accounting 1 and 2 students, had prior knowledge of this accounting software. They were able to mentor and tutor the financial accounting students. So as you can see, there's this skilling, there's this mentoring, there is this onboarding of various things that are happening where students are actually communicating with each other, letting each other know of what the other does not know. So this was part of the take-home component. Now, the interesting thing is that I scheduled an online meeting for each group, and I went through the project, and I gave them very deep feedback, very constructive feedback, almost to the point where I was actually telling them what the answer was. Not exactly, but almost. So it was very hard for them not to get to that point and have this full understanding of the components, right? Now, that counted for almost half of the project's grade. The real magic happened when we met on campus because they had this opportunity to work together. They had an opportunity to check their answers. But then when they came together to a session of about an hour and a half, there was a continuation to the take-home project. New information was added. Now they had to reflect back on what they had learned. They had to reflect back on what they went together and the notes they took and the way they solved the original problem or the case. And then they had to communicate those basic information to the financial accounting, which was serving more like a bookkeeper or a person who's really doing the data entry into the accounting software. Now, the interesting thing is that all the students came together and they worked together and they were explaining things to each other that, it was just amazing because the senior students had to go back and visit things that they have done in the past. The junior students were being exposed to things that they have never seen. So this part of the advanced peer-assisted learning made this come together. The integrated competency-based education component created the context where they were not being judged only on submitting the project. I gave them a chance to come to me with things that were almost not correct. There were some issues, there were some problems, but I wanted to give them a chance so that they can master the content. The idea was on learning. It wasn't just on giving them the grade. The real, true assessment was when we met on campus.